As we've been reporting, Optus is offering its most affected victims a complimentary year-long subscription to a credit monitoring and identity protection service to help reduce the risk of ID theft. The announcement came after the Home Affairs Minister Clare O'Neil blamed Optus for the breach, saying it should not have happened. IT journalist Jeremy Kirk says he's been in contact with the hackers, and he joins me now from Sydney. Jeremy Kirk, thank you for your time. So Clare O'Neil has given her strongest response yet to the Optus breach, and she's flagged that a breach of similar size in other countries would have resulted in huge fines of hundreds of millions of dollars. Should that statement have been made sooner, or do you think Clare O'Neil is operating off fresh information now?
Well, I think we definitely need to incentivize companies to make the investments in information security to protect our data. So whether that's having a regulatory regime that's centered around big fines. I mean, we have the European GDPR, General Data Protection Regulation in Europe, and that can. Violations of that can merit some very strong fines. But ultimately, you also think that companies would want to be incentivized by their reputation, to protect personal data. But, there's certainly things that I think that we're going to learn a lot of things from this breach, like perhaps we shouldn't have data retention laws that require telcos to retain data for 6 years. I spoke with a woman who was in a sample part of the data, and she hadn't been a subscriber of Optus since 2018. So I can't really see any reason why, that data should still be held on to. Generally, in information security, you shouldn't hold on to data for any longer than you need to actually use it. And that's because of things like this. The data could, be subject to a breach.
And is that the neighbour who you recognised as being her details being published online? What did she say when you presented that information to her?
Yes, it was a very strange Saturday morning. So when the hacker posted this data, this person posted 2 samples of data. And so I wanted to confirm, did this actually come from Optus, right? And is this person actually telling the truth? So I looked at the 2 data samples, and there's various tests that we can apply to it to see if it actually came from Optus. One of those was I just was kind of looking at it and looking at the addresses, and I realized that I ride my bike past this house down the road 3 or 4 times a week just exercising. So I just thought I'll print out this woman's data and I'll just go down there and see if she's home. So I went down there and kind of ambled up the driveway, and she was out working in her yard. And I said, I'm a computer security journalist. You might have heard about the Optus breach. Is this your data? And I handed her the printout, and she looked at it and she said, yeah, that's me. And she took out her phone and checked her digital driver's license and compared the number that was on the printout. And so we know at that point, okay, well, this data is her data. Now, did it come from Optus? Then I asked her, I said, are you an Optus subscriber? And she said, I was a subscriber, but no longer am as of 2018. And so at that point, we knew that, okay, well, she was this is a strong indication that the data probably came from Optus.
So tell us about the contact you've had with the hackers.
Right, so this data was posted on a really well-known data breach forum where cyber criminals trade stolen data and sell stolen data. And so one of the questions that popped up late last week was, well, how did this happen? And the ABC wrote a good story quoting a senior Optus executive that gave a reason for that. So I was looking to verify that with either other people, with Optus itself. And so I just, I sent the message to the hacker, like, you can register on this forum and send people messages. So I just said, how did you do it? And this person told me and confirmed what a separate source that I had also said, and these people are not connected. So those 2 points combined with the ABC story led me really strong confidence that this is the source of the breach.
Yeah, the ABC story talked about an Optus insider claiming that human error was to blame. Optus denied that. Do we know yet how this hack happened, or are we any closer to finding out?
Yes, we are. So it looks like Optus had left a application programming interface open online. So this is called an API. So to break that down, we actually use APIs all of the time. If you're using the web, if you're interacting with online services, you're actually using APIs and you don't even realize it. So for example, if you log into some sort of service provider and you ask for, show me my data, there's probably an API, just like a bit of code, going back and retrieving that sort of data. So, but when you log into your account, you can only see your data, right? That's why it's set up. It's like you can't fiddle with the URL in your browser and suddenly see my data, because that would be a security problem. Well, what appears to have happened in this case is that Optus left this API just open on the internet, so anybody could find it. And if you found it, you could access it without a username or a password. It was just open. So the hacker went to this API and then figured out how it worked, figured out it was connected to Optus's customer database, and basically downloaded everything sequentially out of their customer database.
Okay, so Optus is now offering the most affected customers the option to take up a 12-month subscription to a credit monitoring and identity protection service. What do you think about that?
That's absolutely terrific, but you also have to keep in mind that this data has a really long life, right? It's not like you're going to sell your house because your address has been leaked. It's difficult to change your driver's license in New South Wales, for example, unless you've already been a victim of identity theft, and they require you to show them a police report in order to change the number, which is just, the horse is, out of the barn at that point. So it's terrific that they're offering that for a year, but, this stuff could hang around. I mean, you might experience identity theft 3 years from now from this incident, or 5 years from now. So I think, we have to keep in mind that this, potentially could have a very long life and very long impacts.
What's the reputational damage for a company like Optus?
People are fuming about this, and it's often a good question in data breaches. It's like, well, will you take your business elsewhere? And some people will definitely do that. People want to have confidence that if they, give their personal data to a company, that they're going to protect it. We have no option as consumers, right? Like, we have to give our data to these companies if we want to interact in a modern economy. So, and the return of that is we expect companies to protect it.
Jeremy Kirk, really good to talk to you. Thanks for your time.
Thanks for having me.